In the heart of Igbo land, nestled between lush green forests and flowing rivers, lay the small village of Umudike. The village was a tapestry of traditional thatch roof huts, vibrant marketplaces, and communal farmlands. It was a place where the rhythm of life was dictated by the seasons and the ancestral spirit guided the people. One fateful evening, under an ominous sky shrouded in dark clouds, cries of a newborn echoed through the village. Chioma, the village midwife, emerged from a modest hut, holding a tiny wailing baby girl. The villagers gathered outside, eagerly awaiting the announcement of the new life. However, as they caught sight of the baby, their expression shifted from anticipation to shock, and murmurs spread through the crowd like wildfire. The baby, named Nkiru, was unlike any other child born in Umudike. Her skin was pale and spotted with patches of pink and white, a stark contrast to the deep rich brown of her parents and siblings. She was an albino, and in the traditional Igbo society, albinoism was often misunderstood and feared. Nkiru's parents, Nneka and Obiora, were simple farmers. They loved their daughter dearly but were deeply concerned about her future. They had other children, all of whom were healthy and robust, blending seemingly with the rest of the community. Nkiru, however, stood out, and her uniqueness made her a target for whispers and superstition. As Nkiru grew, the village whispers grew louder. The other children, unkind and unknowing, called her names and excluded her from their games. Adults too were wary of her, believing that her condition was a bad omen. Despite this, Nkiru's spirit remained resilient. She found solace in her family's love and in the quiet corner of the village, where she would often sit and listen to the stories of the elders. Her mother, Nneka, tries to shield her as much as possible. She would apply protective oil on Nkiru's skin and ensure she wore long loose clothing to shield her from the harsh sun. But despite these efforts, Nkiru often returned home with painful sunburn, her delicate skin unable to withstand the tropical heat. Nkiru's father, Obiora, was a man of few words. He worked tirelessly in the field from dawn till dusk to provide for his family. Though he didn't speak much, his eyes often betray his deep concern for Nkiru. He knew that her path would be difficult. As the years passed, Nkiru blossomed into a beautiful young woman. Her albinism, once a source of ridicule, became a mark of her uniqueness. Her pale skin, now protected with better knowledge and care, glowed in the moonlight, and her eyes, light and piercing, held a wisdom beyond her years. She spent most of her time with her grandmother, Mama Nkechi, who was the village's oldest and wisest woman. Mama Nkechi taught her granddaughter about the herbs and plants that grew in the forest, how to heal wounds and ailments, and the ancient stories of their people. Despite her growing beauty and wisdom, Nkiru's life was far from easy. The prejudice and superstition surrounding her condition never fully disappeared. One day, word spread through the village that King Obinna, the ruler of their land, would visit Umudike. The villagers were buzzed with excitement and anticipation. It was rare for the king to visit such a small village, and everyone wanted to make a good impression. The streets were swept clean, and colorful clothes were hung from the huts in preparation for his arrival. When the day finally came, King Obinna arrived with a grand entourage. He was a tall, imposing figure, dressed in rich fabrics and adorned with beads and feathers. His presence commanded respect, and the villagers gathered around, eager to catch a glimpse of their king. As King Obinna walked through the village, his eyes fell upon Nkiru, who was standing with her family. Her unique appearance caught his attention immediately. He had never seen anyone like her before. Intrigued, he approached Nkiru and her family, asking about her. Nneka and Obiora explained Nkiru's condition with a mixture of pride and trepidation. To their surprise, the king seemed fascinated rather than repelled. He spoke kindly to Nkiru, asking her about her life and her interests. For the first time, Nkiru felt seen and valued by someone of great importance. After his visit, King Obinna couldn't get Nkiru out of his mind. He saw her as a rare jewel, someone who could bring a unique beauty and wisdom to his court. He sent word to Nkiru's family, proposing marriage, but the news was met with mixed reaction in the village. Some saw it as a great honor, while others whispered that the king was bewitched by her strange appearance. Nkiru's parents were hesitant. They knew that palace life would be challenging for their daughter, but they also saw it as an opportunity for her to be protected and valued. After much deliberation and with Nkiru's consent, they accepted the king's proposal. As Nkiru prepares to leave her village, she felt a mixture of excitement and fear. She hoped that this new chapter of her life would bring her happiness and acceptance. However, deep down, she knew that her journey was just beginning and that she would need all her strength and resilience to face the challenges ahead. With a heavy heart, she bid farewell to her family and the village that had been both her sanctuary and her torment. As she rode away in the king's carriage, she looked back one last time, silently promising herself that she would find a way to thrive no matter what the future held. King Obinna awaited her arrival with anticipation. He had been captivated by Nkiru's unique beauty and was eager to introduce her to the members of his cabinet. As Nkiru stepped out of the carriage, the king's eyes lit up. He approached her with a warm smile, taking her hand and leading her into the palace. The grand hall was filled with noble men and their wives, and also the king's other wives. Whispers and gasps echoed through the room as they caught sight of Nkiru. Her pale skin and striking features set her apart, drawing both admiration and disdain. The king, however, saw only her beauty and grace.
Nkiru, King Obinna announced,
his voice resonating through the hall.
Welcome to your new home. Tonight we will celebrate your arrival.
The evening was a whirlwind of introductions, music, and dance. Nkiru did her best to navigate the complexities of court life, her mind a blur of names and faces. She felt the weight of 1,000 eyes upon her, some filled with curiosity, others with judgment. Among the nobles, Nkiru noticed a group of women watching her intently. They were the king's other wives. Their expression ranged from polite smile to thinly veiled hostility. One of them, a striking woman named Amara, stepped forward. "Welcome, Nkiru," Amara said, her voice smooth but laced with an edge.
"I hope you find your place here in the palace."
Nkiru nodded politely, sensing the underlying tension. She knew that earning acceptance in the palace would be no easy task, especially among the king's other wives. Amara in particular seemed to regard her as a threat. Days turned into weeks and Nkiru struggled to find her footing in her new life. Despite the king's initial warmth, he began to distance himself, influenced by the whispers and prejudice of some cabinet members. The Onowu and the chiefs, unfamiliar with albinism, viewed her with suspicion and often treated her with disdain. Nkiru's days were filled with lonely walks through the palace garden and quiet moments of reflection. She missed the simplicity of her village, the familiar faces of her family, and the comforting presence of Mama Nkechi. The palace, with all its grandeur, felt like a cage. Amara and the other wives took every opportunity to remind Nkiru of her outsider status. They would make sneak remarks about her appearance, exclude her from gatherings, and spread rumors about her being a bad omen. The palace servants, following the lead of their mistresses, treated her with indifference or outright contempt. One particular harsh afternoon, as Nkiru walked through the palace courtyard, she overheard a group of servants discussing her.
"Have you seen the king's new wife?"
One of them sneered.
"She's like a ghost haunting the palace with her pale skin."
She's an embarrassment,
another added.
And the king must have lost his mind.
Their words cut deep, and Nkiru felt tears welling up in her eyes. She quickly turned away, seeking solace in the privacy of her chambers. There, she allowed herself to cry, the weight of her isolation pressing down on her. Despite the cruelty she faced, Nkiru found small pockets of kindness within the palace. A few servants, moved by her quiet strength, began to show her small acts of compassion. One of them, a young girl named Ifeoma, would bring her fresh flowers from the garden and sit with her during her loneliest moments.
"Your Majesty,"
Ifeoma said one evening as they sat by the window,
"you have a light within you that no one can dim. Do not let their words break you."
Nkiru smiled weakly, grateful for Ifeoma's friendship. She knew she had to remain strong not just for herself, but for those who believed in her. One night, after a particular encounter with Amara, Nkiru and Amara was summoned to be present before the king. Amara lied to the king and accused her of stealing some gold jewelries from her chambers. The king believed Amara without giving her a chance to defend herself, because Amara forced her way into her room and ordered her servants to search the entire room and found the gold jewelry. She tried to defend herself, but no one believed her, and she was punished severely by the king. Nkiru decided she could no longer endure the constant torment. So she waited until the palace was quiet, then quickly took some herbs and killed herself, thereby bringing an end to her pain. The next morning, her dead body was discovered in the room, and she was laid to rest at the king's graveyard. Amara was so happy at the demise of her rival, and life goes on as if nothing happened. In the distant future, in a bustling city far from the tranquil village of Nkiru's time, lived a brilliant young scientist named Adora. She was renowned for her groundbreaking research in genetics and dermatology, dedicated to finding cures for skin conditions that had plagued humanity for centuries. Adora, with her dark skin and bright eyes, bore an uncanny resemblance to the legendary Nkiru car. Adora had always felt a deep, inexplicable connection to her ancestral roots. She grew up hearing stories of Nkiru from her grandmother, tales that fascinated and filled her with anger, why Nkiru should take her own life instead of standing up for herself. One day, while poring over ancient manuscripts in a dimly lit library, Adora discovered a ritual that promised to connect the present with the past. It spoke of a powerful ceremony that could transcend time, allowing a soul to reincarnate and complete its unfinished journey. The manuscript hinted at the mystical place deep in the forest of Umudike where the ritual could be performed. With her discovery, Adora felt a powerful sense of purpose. She knew she had to undertake this journey, not just for her research, but for the fulfillment of a destiny that had been written long before her time. Gathering her courage, she set off for the village where Nkiru had lived long ago. The journey was arduous, but Adora was driven by an unshakable resolve. She trekked through dense forests, crossed rivers, and climbed hills, following the ancient maps and manuscripts she had studied. When she finally reached the village, she lodged in a hotel nearby. She studied the map, which guided her to the sacred grove where the ritual could be performed. The grove was in a place of ancient power, its trees tall and majestic, their leaves whispering secrets of the past. Adora felt a deep sense of reverence as she stepped into the circle of stones at the grove center. Under the light of a full moon, Adora began the ritual. She recited the ancient incantation, her voice strong and clear. The air around her shimmered with energy. The very fabrics of time seemed to blend and twist. As she completed the final words of the incantation, a blinding light enveloped her, and she felt herself being pulled through a vortex of time and space. When the light faded, Adora found herself standing in the very village where Nkiru had once lived. But it was different, simpler, more primitive. She looked down at her hands and gasped. Her skin was no longer dark, it was pale and spotted. She had become Nkiru. Nkiru, now with the knowledge and strength of Adora, felt an overwhelming sense of purpose. She knew she had been given a second chance to reclaim her place in history and seek justice for the wrong she had endured. With the cure she had developed, she could protect her skin from the sun and enhance her beauty naturally, making her a figure of admiration rather than scorn. Determined to confront her past and reclaim her destiny, she had returned to the time where they had considered her dead and taken to the village mortuary for embalmment. The mortuary attendants were surprised at her resurrection because they were certain that she was dead. All fled, but it didn't bother Nkiru, or rather Adora. Nkiru set off for the palace. When she finally arrived, the palace guard scarcely recognized her. She was no longer the timid, sunburned girl who anyone can intimidate. She was a vision of beauty and strength, her presence commanding respect. Word of Nkiru's return quickly spread through the palace. The king's wives and servants, who had once mocked and scorned her, now gazed at her in awe. The king, King Obinna, was among those who were struck by her transformation. He could hardly believe his eyes when he saw her standing before him, radiant and confident. Nkiru, he said, his voice filled with astonishment. Is it truly you? It is I, my king, Nkiru replied, her voice steady and strong. I have returned not as a victim, but as a queen who seeks justice and respect. The accusation that Queen Amara levied on me is all a lie, and I am not dead, but I took a concoction I learned from my grandmother that she used to give me to restore my health and skin against sunburn, thereby helping my skin radiate and glow again. King Obinna, moved by her words and her presence, invited her into the palace, and she was given a chance to defend herself. The chief priest was invited, and both Amara and Nkiru was asked to swear on who is telling the truth, and whoever is found guilty by the gods will be banished from the village. It was at that moment that Queen Amara confessed, fearing the consequences that would follow if she swore falsely. Queen Amara was punished severely by the king for lying and deceiving him. She felt a surge of jealousy and fear, remembering the threat Nkiru had once posed, and saw her return as a challenge to her position. Determined to eliminate her and assert her dominance as queen, Amara began to plot against Nkiru. She gathered her allies within the court, whispering rumors and sowing seed of distrust. But Nkiru, with her knowledge from the future and her newfound strength, was always one step ahead. Nkiru used her scientific knowledge to gain favor among the chiefs, sharing remedies and treatment that enhanced their well-being. Her intelligence and wisdom won her the admiration of many, and she quickly became a beloved figure in the palace. The king, captivated by her transformation and her strength, began to favor her more openly, further fueling Amara's jealousy. One day, Amara devised a final desperate plan to rid herself of Nkiru once and for all. She concocted a poisonous potion, intending to sip it into Nkiru's drink during a grand feast. However, Nkiru, ever vigilant and intuitive, sensed the danger. She discreetly switched the drinks, and it was Amara who drank the deadly poison. As Amara collapsed, the palace was thrown into chaos as she asked her maid who she served the drink she had prepared to.
What drink are you talking about?
Asked the king. The maid told them that she had asked her to personally serve the drink to Queen Nkiru, but don't know what was inside. Queen Nkiru took the cup from her and sniffed it and told them it was poisoned, and it dawned on them that she had intended to poison Nkiru. The king, realizing the extent of Amara's treachery, was both furious and heartbroken. After being treated by the palace physician, the king banished her from the palace, declaring that her jealousy and deceit had no place in his kingdom. With Amara gone, Nkiru became the undisputed queen. She used her position to promote understanding and acceptance of differences within the community. She implemented new laws to protect its citizens and ensure that no one would suffer as she had. The king, remorseful for his earlier treatment, supported her initiatives. Despite the positive changes, not everyone in the palace was pleased. Some chiefs and servants who were loyal to Amara and resisted to change plotted in the shadows. They saw Nkiru's growing influence as a threat to their power and status. Among them was Chief Eze, a cunning and ambitious noble who had long enjoyed the privileges of Amara's favor. One evening, as Nkiru walked through the palace garden, she overheard a hushed conversation between two servants. They spoke of a meeting that Chief Eze had planned, a gathering of those who opposed the king, and they planned to dethrone him and Nkiru in revenge for Amara. Nkiru's heart raced, but she remained calm. She needed to plan to expose Chief Eze and his conspirators without causing further unrest. Nkiru confided in the king, explaining what she had heard and her concern about the potential rebellion. King Obinna, though angered by the treachery, trusted Nkiru's judgment. Together, they devised a plan to reveal Chief Eze's true intention to the chiefs. On the night of the secret meeting, Nkiru and the king, accompanied by a small group of loyal guards, silently approached the gathering place. Hidden from view, they listened as Chief Eze outlined his plan to overthrow the king. He spoke with passion, convincing his followers that their way of life was under threat. When the moment was right, King Obinna and Nkiru stepped out from their hiding place, their presence startling the conspirators. The guards quickly subdued Chief Eze and his followers, bringing them before the chiefs to face judgment. Chief Eze, realizing his fate was sealed, glared at Nkiru. "You think you've won," he spat, "but there will always be those who will oppose you." Nkiru met his gaze calmly. "I do not seek to win or dominate," she replied. "I seek unity, understanding, and progress. Your actions have shown that you are unwilling to embrace these values, and for that, you will be held accountable." The conspirators were imprisoned, and Chief Eze was banished from the kingdom. King Obinna, now fully recognizing Nkiru's words, made her his chief advisor. Their partnership was one of mutual respect and shared vision. They worked tirelessly to create a kingdom where all people, regardless of their background or appearance, could live in unity and love.